Well, coming up this weekend, we are expecting a rather large, intense storm system to be moving through South Central. Good possibility with the high winds that we could see some power outages going through the area. And we just wanted to give some people a little bit of advice on what they can do now so that if there is a power outage coming through this weekend, we have a better chance of everything going smoothly. So joining me is Jeremy Zidek. And Jeremy, you deal with emergency response on a daily basis. Probably not the biggest emergency. We're not in that intense cold anymore here in the South Central area and across much of the state, but can you give us kind of an idea, what's your best advice to somebody, that things they can do now to prepare for a power outage that might come through this weekend?
Yeah, I think that one of the key things for any type of disaster event is having an emergency kit in your home. We recommend you have up to 2 weeks of supplies, but if you can only have a few days, that's a good place to start. Next, if there is a power outage, some of the problems that we see is that people will bring generators into their home and start those generators or have them very close, or sometimes they bring barbecues into their home, and that can build up carbon monoxide and other gases in your home that can be very deadly. So we don't want to see any loss of life during a power outage, and that's one of the primary problems. If you are running a generator next to your home, make sure that carbon monoxide detector is working properly in your home. Another great tip is during blackouts, things are dark. So having flashlights make sure that the batteries are nice and charged. If you can recharge your different lighting devices, that's good. We don't recommend candles. Those are open flame sources, and occasionally when we have blackouts we see fires from some of these candles. So if you can use flashlights, that's really the safest bet, and they really provide a lot more illumination. Make sure your phones are all charged up and that you have maybe some backup battery power to recharge your devices so you can communicate and get information. It's always a good idea to fill up some water jugs in advance of any type of disaster event so you have good potable drinking water in addition to whatever water that you have in your kit. And you can also do things like fill up your bathtub so you have water for flushing toilets and for maybe other sanitation purposes.
One of the things we
Another
were talking about earlier as well was particularly people who are on wells might want to take that
Yeah,
advice now to be prepared if the power does go out.
right. Our wells run off of power, so having some emergency water for drinking and for that sanitation is one of the things that people can do in advance of a blackout. And then, we want you to minimize opening doors, opening refrigerators, opening freezers, and try to keep the heat that you have or the cold things cold, and just avoid some of that stuff. And then finally, turning off appliances that aren't needed. When the power companies do start to re-energize the system, the more load that's on the system, the more difficult it can be for them to restore power. So you can help the power utility by turning off your unneeded appliances and things and leave a light on, so when the power does come back on, you know that it's on, and you can go through and slowly turn things back on one by one.
That's interesting because I had read that same advice to turn off unnecessary appliances, but I wasn't sure why. So that makes a lot more sense that obviously there would be a power, you're just having to go from zero to a crazy amount is harder than smaller amounts of electricity being used.
Yeah, that's right. We can help out the power companies. One other thing to keep in mind is that if you do hook up a generator to your home, that you are not re-energizing the entire home. That can be dangerous for linemen. Where when you energize your home, that can travel back through the lines, and if someone's working on a line, there could be some potential electrical shock there. So if you don't have a switch to disconnect your home from the grid and have the kind of that transfer over to an emergency generator, Just use the generator power to power specific appliances with extension cords, but don't try to energize your whole home if your system is not designed to do that.
So we've got, 48 hours before we really think this storm is going to be coming through the South Central area. What's your best advice to people? You and I have discussed this before. We always talk about the fact that we need our emergency kits, but most of us don't always prepare them very well. What's your best advice for somebody in the next 48 hours? Your best thing we should be doing to get ready, just in case there is a power outage coming this weekend.
Those emergency kits are really kind of insurance policies, and what they allow you to do is stay in your home. If you don't have some basic necessities, you may have to leave your home. So it's the best place for people to be during a disaster, in their home, where they can keep an eye on their stuff, make sure that their goods are being protected, and they can do things to mitigate any kind of damage from the disaster event. And it's the most comfortable for people. They can stay with their pets and everybody is together. But in order to do that, we need just a little bit of emergency supplies. Most of the stuff is already in our home. We just need to take a look at a wide array of checklists and guides that are available to us, and build a kit that makes sense for our family. We recommend people have 2 weeks of supplies, but here in Alaska, myself included, I like to go fishing. And so I have a lot of fish in my freezer that I can use as emergency food, but I just need to make sure that that fish stays frozen. That's why I have an electrical generator to power that intermittently during a blackout or some other type of disaster.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you, Jeremy. Again, we don't want to panic people. We just want everybody to kind of have an idea that with these high winds that we are seeing, there's likelihood that we're going to see some power outages. And with a couple days' notice, the idea of getting your flashlights someplace where you know they are, that the batteries are fresh. And I like the idea of having backup batteries for our electronic devices. I hadn't even thought of that, but I have a couple that I know are not charged. And so that's what I'm going to do tonight when I get home, is go ahead and get those charged. So I appreciate Jeremy giving us this information. It was really helpful.
All right. Thank you very much.